It's never too early to bust out the playoff crystal ball. And on the Thursday episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, we're doing just that with the postseason matchups. If it were to start today, you need to know what's going on in the NHL realm. And that's why you're tapped into today's episode.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, everybody, and welcome back inside the lab to the Thursday edition of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Shout out to the everydayers for holding us down, making us their first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Steele, this time of year is very intriguing for fantasy GMs, for hockey fans, and for NHL bettors alike. And today we're going to talk about a couple of different angles very quickly off the top. It's playoff pool season, baby, and I've been in a bunch of different leagues and over the last couple of days been invited to some. So I'll just talk about some general advice about a playoff pool. If you're in one, if you've never been in one, maybe you're jumping in one. We'll talk about it very quickly off the jump and get to the meat and potatoes of today's show, Steele. First of all, we got to talk about the Washington Capitals and Alex Ovechkin. All of a sudden, this is a team that, and you know what, we'll save this talking point for something that you and I have spoken about. Is this team for real? And that's going to slide nicely into, I was looking at the playoff picture today and having a look at the first round matchups on both sides of the coin. You and I are never, ever too early or afraid to pull out the crystal ball. We'll have a quick look at if the playoffs were to start today. Some way too early predictions, perhaps. Thursday's bets. We're doing the playoff look ahead, that's for sure. But look, Steele, postseason pools, and I know you've never perhaps been in one or not in many, but all I have to say out there is if you are in a playoff pool or joining one, there are a few different formats, but the main performance piece is if you are in one, the only way to go at it is obviously go with your gut and draft players on the team that you think is going to go deep. That's obvious. But you also have to dig into the matchups, and that's why I wanted to also mention it, because Steele and I are going to do just that. Have a look at who's going head-to-head. Have a look at how they've done during the season. And, of course, how main piece on these teams have done in their postseason career. Some players shy away, Steele. We know that all too well with our own Toronto Maple Leafs, don't we? And I'll just leave it at this for you. If you are tapping into a pool this year, make sure for the first time, if it is your first time, maybe only sprinkle or 10 or 20, Steele. I think you can get with me on that. You're on mute, brother.
The mute button has got me once again.
He's back.
I'm always back here, baby. But yeah, you don't want to spend too much money in your first time going to a playoff.
Just like fantasy.
I would just reiterate exactly what you said. You don't want to put all of your eggs in one basket. If you feel as if, let's just put out the New York Rangers, for instance. If you feel like they're going to go all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals, and you never know, there could be a major upset in the first two rounds there, and that knocks out the New York Rangers. If you picked all of your players on one team and they're out of there, you're done. You're not going any further. You're definitely not winning your playoff bracket pool out there. So make sure you're not putting all your eggs in one basket. Spread them out. Spread them out into at least 2 or 3 teams, probably even 4. Spreading them out accordingly.
I like that. 2 teams on each conference. Anyway, it was just one of those things because, look, over the last couple of days, I've been invited into a bunch of different playoff pools, and it just adds a little intrigue because the postseason is upon us, and that's why we got to talk about this Washington Capitals situation because there are a lot of fantasy GMs out there, I think yourself included, perhaps involved in Alexander Ovechkin deals. Remind me or not, did you pull a deal for Ovi down the stretch there, or...
I acquired Alexander Ovechkin and Philip Gustafson in my keeper dynasty pool.
Okay.
I forget who I traded away or if there was a draft pick involved. But yeah, I did get Alex Ovechkin maybe about a month ago or 3 weeks ago.
And look, 21 goals on the season. I know a lot of people are talking about this record of his. He's only one of the few guys to ever hit 20 goals in a bunch of 19 straight seasons of 20 goals is just straight up crazy, Steele. I think it's only like Wayne Gretzky and Lemieux and a couple of other people who've ever done that. However, 21 goals on the season for Ovechkin is a disappointment. And from a fantasy standpoint, you and I have been all over this Washington Capitals club as one to really be careful of how much you're investing in. And I think right now, once again, and for the most of the season, I think we've been pretty accurate. But right now, they're proving us wrong. That's for sure. 3 straight wins, 6 out of their last 10. I just want to leave it at this. When I look at the Detroit, for now anyway, when I look at the Detroit Red Wings at 76 points, one ahead of Washington, I look at the Tampa Bay Lightning with 80 points. And I even look at the New York Islanders 2 points behind Washington. I can't help but feel that I'm just not buying into it. The only way it works, Steele, is how? Is if Alexander Ovechkin scores goals, and he scored 3 in the last 2 games, and they're winning those games.
Yeah, and it also have to put some heavy pressure on Charlie Lindgren or Darcy Kemper, whoever goes into the crease for the remaining of the season. And if they get into
Lindgren's
the
been
playoffs,
good.
Yeah, exactly. So they just have to keep up that good play for the remainder of the regular season. But it's going to be tough for Washington. Besides one game this upcoming week when they play the Winnipeg Jets, all of their remaining games are against Eastern club teams, and a lot of them coming in that Metropolitan Division. Just to finish out the month of March, they've got 2 games against the Maple Leafs, Carolina Hurricanes, Winnipeg Jets, the one that comes in the Western Conference, the Boston Bruins, Detroit Red Wings, who are fighting with them for a playoff spot, and then just to end April as well, Carolina once again, Boston once again, Philadelphia, Tampa Bay. You got a couple of lower tier teams in Ottawa, Buffalo twice, and Detroit. But I mean, this is going to be a very tough remaining month left for the Washington Capitals if they want to squeak into a playoff spot. And even if they do, who are they going up against? They're either going up against the Boston Bruins or the Florida Panthers, maybe even potentially the New York Rangers. That is a tough ask right there for a team who has struggled to score goals all season long has not really helped out when their goaltenders have been very inconsistent.
Most definitely. And the fact that Charlie Lindgren has been the better goaltender and taken that title away, this quote unquote number 1 goaltender from Darcy Kemper, I think is a little bit indicative of maybe the quality of this team overall, because you mentioned the scoring. They have only outscored the Ducks, Sharks, and Blackhawks.
Yeah.
They also have outside the top 20 power play. I think they're at like 21st or 22nd in the league on the power play. And penalty killing, let me look this up. I know that they're not much better. 17th best. So they're very average or worse than average on special teams. They struggle to score goals. And realistically, it's almost like the Alex Ovechkin show. And I don't want to bet against that show, Steele, when he is going and we don't know the results of the game against Toronto. He always goes off against the Maple Leafs, and I'm intrigued to see the end result of that game. However, if he can pull some OV magic, that's one of those things that you just really don't want to go up against. I keep mentioning that in the first round. That's like upset alert. We're talking about March Madness. That's one of those situations that I could see. I don't know. I actually don't know if I could see it if they're going up against the New York Rangers, if I'm being completely honest. They probably get demolished in 4 games. But you know what I'm talking about in terms of Cinderella type stories. Ovi's the kind of guy to just absolutely lead the way. However, I say we lead the way to the rest of today's episode. We got to leeway that right into the mix because right now they are holding down a wild card spot. And right now, Steele,
the Capitals are holding a wild card spot?
Sorry, they're about to. They're creeping on a wild card spot. My bad. I'm getting ahead of myself here. I'm getting ahead of myself, but we're going to take a look at these first round matchups. Bruins, Red Wings, Panthers, Maple Leafs, and a whole bunch of others. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. You never want to have a frustrating ticket buying experience for your favorite events, whether that's comedy, theater, sports, everything in your area. Game Time has you covered with the most seamless ticket buying experience out there. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets for your favorite event with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Once again, thank you so much for tuning in for today's episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, making it your first listen every day. Hit the subscribe, the follow button, leave a 5-star review. We appreciate all that love and support you show us Monday through Friday. Flip early playoff pictures right now.
Yes,
we know
sir.
there's still a month, just under a month of the regular season remaining in the National Hockey League, but it's always a good time and a good conversation to talk about early playoff pictures, which teams are going up against each other right now, because for the most part, it has been solidified almost, at least in the Atlantic Division, where the Maple Leafs are going to fall, most likely where the Philadelphia Flyers are going to fall. There's some interchangeable, from 1 to 2, but early playoff predictions. I know you've got them up there on your laptop. So
yes, sir.
Well, you want to start Eastern or Western first?
I would just say this very quickly before we ream these off, and I can do that very quickly in the East here. Let me just do that. How about that? Bruins would be getting the Red Wings. Panthers would be getting the Maple Leafs. Rangers be getting the Lightning, and the Hurricanes taking on the Flyers. And look, to your point, first and foremost, I agree with you, especially I think out west, some of these things are going to start tightening up pretty quickly, and we might see much more of a this is the matchup in the first round. However, things are going to change slightly, but most of these teams are going to be in the mix. So as a fantasy GM, still in the mix, whatever your format is, perhaps you don't have fantasy playoffs in your league and you have to run out these next few weeks. You still have to rotate your roster. You want to know which teams are headed where. That's just a fact. So this is going to help you in terms of what you're doing with your roster every night. Also, check out our episode on the ease of schedule. That will definitely help you a little bit as a night-to-night basis. So in terms of the East deal, again, Bruins at Red Wings, Panthers taking on the Leafs, Rangers taking on the Lightning, Hurricanes, Flyers. And then I look out west. I don't know about you, but I'm finding far more intrigue in terms of exciting matchups and perhaps upsets in the West, because I say Red Wings get dusted by the Bruins. Right now, I just don't see it for the Maple Leafs.
Yeah.
Good luck to the Lightning against the Rangers. And if the Flyers do manage to hold it down and get Carolina, good luck to them as well, because Carolina is cooking right now.
The only upset that I could potentially see in the Eastern Conference, and it pains me to say this, it would be the Tampa Bay Lightning against the New York Rangers in the first round, because even as much as Vasilevsky has struggled since coming back from injury, his numbers are not good this season, but we know what he can do in the playoff picture.
For sure.
And then you've got Nikita Kucherov, Steven Stamkos, Braden Point. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing for me, is if Nikita Kucherov, if he can't be dealt with or defended in a proper manner without taking many penalties on the New York Rangers side of things, that's going to be very troublesome for Igor Shesterkin, because we've talked about the power play specialties. We've talked about what he's capable of doing just off the wing on an odd man rush. You don't know whether he's shooting. You don't know whether he's passing. He can look off.
He's a magician.
He is a magician out there. So that's the one in the Eastern Conference that really could be an upset for the New York Rangers. And I still don't think it's going to happen, but look, it's Andrei Vasilevsky, Nikita Kucherov, Steven Stamkos, Victor Hedman, Braden Point, Anthony Cirelli. There's so many guys up there, but that would be a very good matchup. Just because the Lightning are in a wild card spot doesn't mean it won't be a good matchup.
It's easy to say in a playoff matchup, and this is why I already got my blood absolutely flowing, because these are, regardless of how these shake out, Steele, we're about to creep upon the best time. I talked about this. You and I have talked about it on and off air. We're about to creep into the best time of the hockey schedule. The first couple of weeks of the playoffs are absolutely sensational. And I'll just say this, it's going to come down to Shesterkin. And I know it's easy to say in a playoff series that it comes down to the goaltender, but I think we've seen from this New York Rangers team, if they are Stanley Cup ready, he's got to be himself. And that's not really a big ask, is it? Because we know how good he has been. But I would say if the Tampa Bay Lightning have any shot of taking that series, they're going to have to get their offensive game going in a very big way. So I'll just leave it at that. But that's the one upset I would see. That's probably also, so you got Carolina, I'll say it again, Carolina, Philadelphia, Florida, Toronto, Boston, Detroit. Boston would sweep aside Detroit right now.
Yeah.
Maybe 5 games. The Leafs would be lucky to get 1 or 2 against Florida right now. And the same for Philadelphia against Carolina. So why don't we switch over to the West very quickly, because we got big time bets coming up. Today's episode is going to be short and sweet. The rest of the week, tap in. We'll be getting any injury news, any updates to rosters, line shuffles, combinations that you need to know. Also, any advice. We got bets for the rest of the week. Make sure you're tapped in. Playoff breakdowns coming up. But of course, Steele, Western Conference, if you don't mind. Jets, Predators, spicy. Colorado Avalanche, Dallas Stars, extra spicy. Vancouver Canucks and the Vegas Golden Knights, and then the Edmonton Oilers and L.A. Kings. I don't know where you'd like to start, because I've got takes for all 4 of those series, to be honest.
I'm going to start with the wild card teams right now, because I don't think this couldn't be a worse team to go up against if you're the Winnipeg Jets or the Vancouver Canucks. If you're going up against the reigning Stanley Cup champs and the Vegas Golden Knights, and Thatcher Demko is coming off an injury, and you've got one of the hardest, grittiest, physical teams out there with the Vegas Golden Knights. Again, their players are coming off injury, injured reserve as well. Noah Hannafin's been absolutely special since coming over there. You still got to wait for Mark Stone, Thomas Hertl, and more people to get off the IR. That's a very bad matchup, in my opinion, for the Vancouver Canucks in the first round.
I agree.
I bet you wish. I bet they wish that the Vegas Golden Knights were not in that. A month ago when they were sliding down the standings, that they were probably still up there with them. So that's a very tough matchup for me, for the Vancouver Canucks. And then I've said this all season long. The Nashville Predators are a dark horse team, and they have been over the last 2 years for me. And I know
spicy.
It's very spicy. And I think it's a very bad matchup for the Winnipeg Jets. And
I knew you were going to say that.
Connor Hellebuck is the best goaltender, or one of the best goaltenders out there. But I mean, again, the Winnipeg Jets have struggled to score in the postseason. And when we just talked about the Predators the other day, one of the nastiest, most physical presence in the league right now, most penalized team. They're always checking. They're always finishing their checks. They're on you no matter what. You've got Roman Josi playing like he's 25 right now. He's absolutely dominating out there.
That's a fact.
You've got the young guys chipping in. You've got the top 2 lines contributing on a nightly basis. Ryan O'Reilly, Philip Forsberg, and so many other key pieces. Gustav Nyquist. That would be an upset for me right there. That would be the one in the Western Conference where I could see the Nashville Predators defeating the Winnipeg Jets, who the Winnipeg Jets are a better team.
Well, and we're also talking about a team that's won 3 straight as well, 7 of their last 10. I'm not taking anything away from Nashville. I'm just playing a bit of devil's advocate here, because I'm not going to disagree with you. I don't know how you could. I think in the last 16 games, I saw a stat there like 14-2-2 since the All-Star break, or something crazy that.
They have points in 15 straight games.
Thank you very much. And that's all that really you need to be said, because that equals they are the hottest team in the NHL, and they're doing it on the backs of the likes of players that you've highlighted: Sherwood, Novak, Evangelista, and then unsung heroes up top in Philip Forsberg, Roman Josi turning back the clock. It's a really good story as well, Steele.
Yeah.
Lots of fantasy value to be had. Let's continue this conversation very quickly right after the break, because the other one that stands out to me, Steele, is one that I think is quite obvious in the Dallas Stars and Colorado Avalanche. That's going to be an absolute bloodbath. I could see 7 games, but how can we not also talk about the Edmonton Oilers and L.A. Kings going at it once again? Let's do about both of them right after the break. And, oh, baby, I am ready for that ad read.
Big time bets as well. We'll finish up with those other 2 matchups in the Western Conference. But first, this episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers.
Thank you, sir.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to hit the subscribe, the follow button, leave a 5-star review. We appreciate all that love and support you show us Monday through Friday. Flip, over to you. The last two matchups we haven't talked about: Edmonton Oilers and L.A. Kings, Avalanche and Stars. Let's start with the Avalanche and Stars, because I think that's going to be a very, very, if not the best matchup in the first round.
I think the whole round, like both sides of the coin, that's the best one. And you knew I was going to say that too because of how much I've been talking about the Dallas Stars. But let me just finish this point on Nashville for a degenerate gambler's sake. $25 on the Nashville Predators for the cup right now, Steele, pays $1,100. So I'm just saying, just had to throw that out there. It might be worth it. Also, the Winnipeg Jets, for comparison's sake, plus 1,300. So there you go. But look, the Dallas Stars and the Colorado Avalanche are now on a collision course for that first round, and a really good Stanley Cup worthy team. And I know anything could happen, and Winnipeg's right there at 93. A really good team with Stanley Cup aspirations is going to be left out in the first round. That's my number one takeaway. And number two, right now, if you're the Colorado Avalanche and you're looking at this Dallas Stars team, you got to really hope Jake Ottinger doesn't find his game, because that's really the only hole that I can poke in this Dallas Stars team this year, because otherwise they have everything. And I don't think we need to talk about it because I've talked about it at length. So I'll leave it at this. The Colorado Avalanche are hungry because they had their taste of success. They've been close again. They've retooled once again. Casey Middlestad and Sean Walker have fit in seamlessly. They're looking really good with those additions. And I would say that in 7 games, if you had to tell me to pick right now today, given what I've seen from Jake Ottinger over this second half, I would have to say Colorado in 7. I don't know what you think about that prediction.
I would have to agree with that just because of Cale Makar, Nathan McKinnon, Mikko Rantanen, and Valeri Nichushkin. I mean,
Nichushkin's a very interesting wild card.
You've got superstars on both sides. I would tend to lean with the Avalanche in 7. I think it will go the distance. The thing that scares me with the Avalanche, and you just said it for the Dallas Stars point of view, is Georgiev. I mean, he really needs to be on his game, and he's played so many games this entire season. We could see the exact same
last
thing.
year too.
Yeah, we could see the exact same thing what happened to Jake Ottinger against the Calgary Flames, where he played close to 70 games in the season.
Gassed.
And he was gassed. They lost in game 6 or game 7, I believe it was. And he just played too many games. We've talked about that with Andrei Vasilevsky over the last 3 years. That's the thing that worries me about Alexander Georgiev, if he's going to have enough steam against the Dallas Stars.
Yeah, for sure. Most definitely. This is, again, I just need to see what's good. I need to see these teams go at it. Tyler Seguin is back. There's veterans on either side who have been on stretch runs, who have won cups. That has all the makings of a 7-game absolute battle bloodbath situation. And when I look at the Edmonton Oilers, L.A. Kings, which I think they've had their own battles in the postseason of late.
2 years in a row, and it looks like it's going to be a third.
There you go. And I think you have to give this year the clear edge to the Edmonton Oilers.
Oh, yeah.
I think but does that mean that they're not going to perhaps still have their demons to exercise and the LA Kings give them fits? We know the LA Kings know how to beat them, and this very similar LA Kings crew. So do I give the edge to the Edmonton Oilers? Am I absolutely pumped up to see if Connor McDavid can translate this heater he's been on, tease to bets, on the second half of the season and overall into the postseason? I'm very, very, very intrigued, Steele. If I had to, again, if I want to put out a prediction, I'm going to say Oilers in 6.
I would have to tend to agree with that as well. 2 years ago, they went the distance. They went to 7. Last year, they went 6, I believe. So it's going to be third. Maybe it's third time's a charm for the LA Kings. But, I mean, the Edmonton Oilers haven't faltered since, I don't even know when they started, mid-January?
Well, they brought in Knobloch.
Yeah, so, I mean, they haven't faltered much. And they've shot up the standings in the West.
7-1-2 in their last 10, by the by.
Let's go to big-time bets, where the money is made. Many games on the schedule for Thursday night.
Yes,
I've got
sir.
3
11.
picks. If you don't mind, I'm just going to rattle them off, and I'll
rattle
throw
them
to you.
Rattle them.
First pick of the night, Canucks, Canadiens, over 6.5.
Ooh.
Second pick of the night, the Red Wings have been absolute atrocity out there on the ice. They were lucky to get a 2-point win over the Columbus Blue Jackets. They're 2-8-0 in their last 10 games. That's why I'm taking the Islanders on the money line against the Red Wings. These are two teams that are still battling for a wild card spot. That's my second pick. Hurricanes, Flyers, under 6.5 in this matchup.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it's going to be a close game, if it's going to be pure domination for the Hurricanes, but I'm taking the under 6.5, and I'm just feeling that one.
I'm liking all those picks. Also, Islanders have points in 8 of the last 10 against the Detroit Red Wings, including 6 wins. So I'm really liking all your picks, Steele, especially I think that under. I'm going to take a look at that game as well because it's actually my lock of the night. So let's just get right there. Carolina Hurricanes at -200. I know you're going to have to pay quite a bit of juice there. They're 9-1 in their last 10 against the Flyers. I talked about this a lot over the past couple of weeks. The recovery of Freddie Anderson from major injury, health scare, huge good energy. They bring in the biggest piece on the market in Jake Gensel. They bring in a really good veteran guy that people like to play with in Evgeny Kuznetsov, and they're winning. They've got wins in 9 of their last 11 games. Come from behind wins against playoff-bound teams in the Toronto Maple Leafs. The vibes are very real in Carolina. They're back home where they're very tough to play against. Philly is up and down. We haven't talked about the benching of Sean Couturier. I don't know what you think about that. Maybe hit you with your take on that while we wrap this bad boy up. But Carolina, moneyline lock of the night. Winnipeg's at New Jersey. They're playing excellent hockey right now, the Winnipeg Jets. They're 8-1-1 in their last 10.
The return of Tyler Toffoli as well.
Ooh, Tyler Toffoli revenge game. How about this? Aside from they're cooking right now, they're 11-2 in their last 13 against Jersey. 5 wins out of their last 6 on the road. Loving that one. And lastly, come on, baby. The Edmonton Oilers are at home to the Buffalo Sabres. Where do you think I'm going with this one? Connor McDavid, over 1.5 anytime points. Not a lot of track record for McJesus in his career against the Sabres for obvious reasons. But in 14 career games, 15 points, not too bad. He's on a heater, up to 108 points on the season. McDavid over 1.5. I'm telling you, Steele, Jets money line. Hurricanes money line. McDavid over 1.5. That's a banger. Let's knock it out.
The McDavid over 1.5 has become the new Sidney Crosby anytime apple.
And it's working, baby.
It's working. When it's working, don't change it up because I mean it hits almost every single time. Those are the lock of the night, the bets. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Once again, go check out Locked On Sports Today's YouTube channel, the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On. You can also find it now on the free Amazon Fire TV app. Thank you again so much for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. Have a great day. Good luck with your bets out there, and we shall see you back here again tomorrow.
Peace.